In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Emmeringen Foundation, Arcus Foundation, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, Dewey and LaBeouf, the estate of James B. Wozniak, and these funders. And by the annual support of In the Life members like you.
Children and teens are asserting their gender identities and expression at younger ages. Parents are now faced with decisions about how to let their children express themselves.
I'm a girl, I don't play boy stuff.
And as they reach adolescence, whether or not to medically intervene.
How are we going to navigate puberty?
Tonight on In the Life, meet 8 families who share their journeys with transgender and gender non-conforming children.
We brought everybody together.
Act up!
And we're married.
There was nothing for him to hide.
Make a promise.
Growing up, did you think of yourself as a boy? Did you think of yourself as a girl? And how did you know?
In Berkeley, California, the Gender Spectrum Family Conference is held annually to provide support and information to parents of transgender and gender non-conforming children.
Gender Spectrum is a haven in which they can be themselves, and families can meet the experts that they need to talk to all in one place. For many of these families, it literally will be the first time they've met another parent or seen other kids, maybe like their own.
Children learn about gender very early in life. 2, 3 years of age, a lot of children already are able to label themselves and label other people in terms of gender based on what they see.
Often our role, as much as helping parents understand differences in gender, is helping them to slow down and not decide what it means, but instead to let it unfold. If a 5 or 6-year-old is examining gender, there's really not a lot of decisions you have to make except how I want to be in the moment.
This is Jake. He's 5 years old. He was born biologically female and recently went through the process of socially transitioning from girl to boy.
As soon as he could talk, he started saying he was a boy. Initially, we thought he was just confused about his gender and that it would pass.
Jake's parents, Yuri and Sarah, were open to Jake's expression of his gender identity.
I did kind of ask other parents, does your child do these kinds of things? Because I wasn't sure how much of it was just normal developmental curiosity about gender and how much of it was really something beyond that.
Started with the clothes. Didn't want to wear dresses anymore. No pinks, nothing that was even remotely feminine.
It really became clear that it wasn't a phase, that he wasn't confused, that it wasn't going to change. I think our approach is just not to box him in.
Stuffing all the bedding.
There are boys that like dolls, and there are girls that like boy things. He's a kid. Let's just let him be a kid.
2 babies that are twins.
The transition went in stages. He had already asked us to call him Jake here at home.
By the time he started to transition, I really had done enough research and had enough backing that I felt comfortable saying to people, this is the best thing for our child. Jake really had a hard time. He was very embarrassed about how he felt. And so it took a lot to kind of let him know, this is okay. And the people that are important are still going to be there for you and still love you.
My name is Priscilla, and I'm the proud mother of Jay, who's an 8-year-old transgender boy. The very first time that Jay said anything was with a self-portrait he had done. And in that self-portrait, he had short hair. So I asked him, do you want your haircut? And he said I would love my haircut. So I took him to the hairdressers. I gave him the book of the kids. And he picked out the picture of a little boy, and he said, "Can I get my hair cut this short?" And I said, "If you want, it's your hair. It'll grow back if you don't like it." The moment the hairdresser turned him around and he looked at himself in the mirror for the first time with that haircut, his whole face lit up, and I will never, ever forget that moment. That night, he made it very clear. He said to me, "Mommy, I'm a boy stuck in the wrong body."
Jay socially transitioned from girl to boy during 2nd grade.
I want to bring ice cream.
You want to bring ice cream? One afternoon, Jay woke up from a nap, and he caught me crying. And he climbed up on my lap, and he said, "Mom, are you crying because I'm not a little girl anymore?" And I said, "No, son, I'm not crying because you're not a little girl." And he said, "Good, because I'm still the same person, so you would just be crying for my ponytails." He knew at that moment I needed a little bit of clarification, and he gave it to me.
5. 1, 2, 3.
I've had people that have been close to us call me crazy in the head. They can't believe I'm doing this to my child. All of those statements prove to me that there's ignorance out there. Were you nervous about telling me? Yeah. Were you afraid to tell me? No. You were just nervous?
Yeah.
And how do you feel now?
Very happy.
Do you think you'll ever want to be that person again?
No, maybe.
No, maybe? And what do you think will happen if you decide to? You think I'd support you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want other transgender children to be happy?
Yep.
If you could help their parents, what would you say to their parents?
I tell them to support their children.
Yes. And how would that make their children feel if they supported them?
Happy.
Happy. That's right. And is that the most important thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think so, too. We make a good team, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah, we do.
Do you have a lot of friends at school?
Sierra Angel. That's a boy.
Brian and Maria are the parents of 7-year-old Jackie. Jackie socially transitioned from boy to girl at the end of kindergarten.
2.5, 3, I'd say.
Is when we first noticed that Jackie was being more girl than boy.
Preferred lipsticks out of my pocketbook. Would take a shirt of mine and wear it as a dress.
Whoa!
It was interesting because we go to the pediatrician and they say it was a phase. But when she turned about 3, 3.5, and she would show up at the pediatrician's in the Cinderella dress, the pediatrician did say to us, this is more than a phase.
4.
At first, Brian and Maria had a difficult time accepting Jackie's behavior.
Oh, I thought it was a phase. There was no doubt about that. I was hoping it would go away.
Howdy, people. I'm a mermaid. Do you like my dress?
But I knew, because she was so vocal with me, like, Mom, what's wrong with you? You don't get it. I got on board. It wasn't overnight, but it was faster than my husband. It just took him a long time.
I wouldn't think naturally. I didn't want there to be where we were pushing her one way or the other. I remember the first time she went to the library with her dress on, I was very against it. I was like, it's okay to do it around the house. You were setting boundaries. But I didn't want you going outside because I was so afraid that other people would laugh at you and make you feel uncomfortable. So I was really protecting her. And I said, you take your dress off. She goes, Daddy, it's okay. And they didn't care less. The librarians were like, oh, you want a book? Great.
Santa Claus is coming to town. I read it.
Yay.
I don't like Thursday.
We have a transgender child who's fine. You know, we're not special. We don't do anything special. She goes to school. She has friends. She goes outside and plays. She picks on her brother. She refuses to eat her vegetables. She does everything a normal 7-year-old girl would do.
Parents like Sarah, Yuri, Brian, and Maria receive support from a local PFLAG group for families of transgender and gender non-conforming youth.
Parents of transgender kids have a need that sometimes goes beyond lesbian, gay, and bisexual kids because there's such a medical component and a provider component of it. So we broke out a separate parent support group for the trans parents.
I'm happy to meet other people who are dealing with similar situations that we are. It just makes us feel like we're not alone in raising Jackie.
How are we going to navigate puberty? So talking to other parents about what's to come, at least I can hear from other parents what the experience of giving your child testosterone is like and that kind of information.
As transgender children approach puberty, parents have to consider whether or not to medically intervene.
It's just when kids are young, there's a great fluidity naturally. So it's really puberty that presents the challenge.
There are children who don't go on to become trans adults, and they are called desisters. They stop feeling gender dysphoria. And then there are children who go on and it doesn't go away, and they really feel that they have to change. Different clinicians have different views, so it's hard to know what the answer is.
The topic is actually quite fraught with discussion and disagreement.
There's still a lot of research to be done. We think there's a lot that we don't know, and there's still a lot to learn.
He talked really early, and he was saying for quite a while that he was a boy and he had to shave his head. And we thought, oh, fine. But we still kept calling him she. And one day when he was about 2.5, he slammed his hands on the table and said, I am a he. And that was when we really got it.
I've been asked before, how do you feel about being transgender? And I say, I don't feel transgender. I consider myself a boy. When I started on blockers, I was excited that I would actually get to go through puberty as a stereotypical boy.
It was pretty new territory when he came out. You're always questioning, gosh, was this the right thing? I mean, again, he's leading the way, but he's still a young kid, but, at that time. But we just decided we would follow it, and still, I don't know what was right or wrong. I just know what we did, and it worked out. It worked out very well.
There is no medical treatment for transgender children before the onset of puberty. Our bodies don't produce hormones until about age 11 for girls, age 12 for boys. So that is the time when hormone therapy or hormone blocking therapy is first considered.
And what hormone blockers do is they basically turn off the spigot on your hormones to stop puberty from going forward. So it's a puberty interruption. And what that can do is stop a youth from going through a puberty that's unwanted and give them an opportunity to sort out what adult body and identity they do want.
Tony Firiolo runs a support group in Connecticut where transgender youth and their families turn to each other for support and information about the medical and social decisions that need to be made.
Our daughter's transgender, 15, Kaylee, and she came out a year ago.
Skylar is very excited about the upcoming surgery.
Before these meetings, most of these kids were isolated. They were sitting in their rooms, depressed. Some of these kids were suicidal. Some of these kids were cutting themselves. If you intervene early and allow these children to be who they are and just go through life as the gender they know they are, you're going to prevent the depression and the suicide attempts and the self-harm.
You're just in a little world where everybody knows what transgender is. Everybody knows the struggle that you're going through. Everybody knows that it sucks. It's awful, It's awful, but we love our kids, and our kids are great.
Silly marble.
A marble? This is the marble.
See that?
Oh, gotta be careful.
Oh, you know what it is? That's the
I was depressed for a very long time when I was a kid, and it probably had a lot to do with having to act like I was a boy everywhere, even though I knew inside I wasn't. I'd always gotten the message from society that it was wrong.
Something was going on. He was in his room a lot, door shut, spent more and more time online. And so I began to get so worried that I was looking online to see what was going on. And she had sent an email to a family friend revealing that she was transgender. My heart just sank, and I didn't doubt it for 1 second. So, that's the hard part. So, and thought, okay, where do we go from here? Eventually, I told her, I said, I know what's going on. You know that we love you, and you know that we're gonna figure out where we need to go from here and what we need to do.
Kaylee had already had time to research the medical options available, and she wanted to go on hormones right away. Her parents needed time to learn more about the process before allowing Kaylee to start hormones.
What she ended up getting was a shot that's called Lupron. It tells her brain to stop producing the male hormones, and then was taking an estrogen patch.
Now that I've been on hormones for 6 months and more changes are happening, I'm completely comfortable in my identity, so I don't really even consider myself a trans girl anymore. It's more just like I'm a girl who just happens to be transgender. I feel like I'm just myself. So many clothes now. At the beginning, I just had a few to choose from.
These treatments that they're doing, they're brand new. And I love our endocrinologist because sometimes I'll ask a silly question and he's very honest. He just goes, we don't know.
Bye.
You're doing your research, you're listening to professionals, and you're following your gut, and you're asking your child what they want as well. Not all trans people have the body part dysphoria, but Kaylee certainly does. And that's why now we're at the point where we're talking about the surgery and feeling that the surgery is very, very appropriate for her.
It's just about making the outside match the inside.
For as long as I can remember, I would just get really, really, really confused when people tried to treat me like a girl. I would just be like, no, that's not right. I eventually went to my mom and told her that I needed to start doing something and stop just only thinking about it.
He actually sat down with me and said, I am transgender, and immediately went into the, I want surgery, I want testosterone, I want...
You know, he had obviously thought about it a lot. He was very self-aware about it and was way further along in thinking than we were.
You have to slow him down and say, wait, I'm not against this. Let's just make sure it's the right thing, because this is your entire life you're talking about.
The medical community has been catching up with all of this too, so even getting testosterone at 16 wasn't an easy thing for us to do. Having those guidelines in place gave us time to really catch up and do our homework.
It felt like I had been waiting forever, but it was just the greatest feeling when I got my first shot. As soon as my voice started actually changing, or like started getting slightly hairier, it was really, really exciting. And I don't know, I feel a lot better now, like a lot.
I have surgery in 75 days, not that I'm counting down, because I am. Looking forward to it just because I know everything will get so much easier afterwards.
There is a grieving process that you go through. It almost feels like you're going to lose one kid even though you're going to get another kid. It's okay to go through that. It's going to be hard. You're going to cry. If you just focus on supporting your kid, you'll get through it.
It's opened my eyes to so much more about life and thinking about possibilities in ways that I never would have before.
Now people just completely forget that I'm trans most of the time, and I'm just another guy, and like everybody's come around by now.
Gender identity refers to a person's innate sense of their gender, while sexual orientation refers to whom the person is romantically attracted to. These are distinct and separate aspects of a person's identity. Children who are gender non-conforming may identify anywhere along the spectrum of gender identity and sexual orientation.
I was adopted at the age of 2.5, and I was adopted into an amazing family.
He had been with his birth mom up until that time, and as we learned later, had been very close to her. He immediately found the dress-up box that my daughter, his older sister, had, and dug out the red high heels and would just love them.
Oh, fabulous. I loved high heels from a very young age. I was always trying to walk around in them.
There was a short period of time, maybe a year, where out of our own fear and protectiveness, we didn't exaggerate our enthusiasm for his gender atypical behavior.
When I was little, like, my parents, for a period, thought that I might have been transgender. I didn't feel uncomfortable in my body. There was a time where I wanted to be a girl only because it was okay for them to like the things that I wanted to like. I just felt like, why can't I? Why can't I do these things without being judged?
Maybe 1 or 2 times he would say, I wish I was a girl, but in terms of saying, I'm in the wrong body, we didn't really get that.
He liked his body, he was okay with being a boy, but he wanted to dress in pretty things.
Joel came out to us when he was 16.
I feel like I was born gay. I don't hide like who I am at all anymore, and it feels good.
It's called Faces and Facets of Transgender Experience.
Catherine Hyde leads a PFLAG support group in Maryland and facilitates cultural trainings on gender nonconformity, inspired by her own experiences with her daughter, Will.
It was about age 3 or 4 where Will just wanted to wear tutus. When we first saw this, our biggest concern was that Will was going to get bullied. So we tried very hard to kind of teach Will to behave differently. Looking back, I think that was so the wrong thing to do. I think it really just shamed this child for being who he was. By the age of 6, Will was so angry and so depressed and struggling so hard that Will actually said at one point, Mommy, I'm going to get a real gun and kill myself. And I remember thinking, how can this be? How can a 6-year-old child who is so loved feel so sad and so desperate to feel that way?
At 15, Will came out to her mom as gay. She allowed Will to move into the basement and decorate it to celebrate her coming of age.
This is my room, my pink pom-pom happy little room. I love my room.
So we were down there painting the pinkest, pom-pommiest bedroom in all of Howard County, I swear. And then later on in the painting frenzy, Will and I got into an argument. And I said, you can be as gay as you want, but if you go trans on me, it's on your own time and your own money and out of my house. Obviously, I didn't understand.
A couple of months later, Catherine listened to an episode of This American Life about transgender children whose experiences closely resembled Will's childhood. From the show, Catherine first learned about hormone blockers.
So I went down to Will and I said, come upstairs. I said, do you still feel like a girl on the inside and a guy on the outside? And Will was like, why? Because, you know, at this point, gender conversations have become so raw. And I said, well, the reason I bring it up now is I just heard about these things called puberty blockers that can help you pause time and think about this. And I want you to know if you're interested, I'll help you find them.
Things started to change when my mom offered hormone blockers, and first when she offered them, I thought it was a trick. By this time, I have like no trust for my parents. Then I just went upside and said, I want the puberty blockers, and ever since then, it's just been a lot better. I started becoming just more and more me. It felt finally like I could just breathe. I didn't have to hold my breath anymore. It was just a great feeling. I could just relax into my own skin.
Puberty blockers were a really good step in the right direction. And then we moved on with estrogen and decided that that it didn't feel right, that she didn't want to take estrogen. And I said, you know, honey, this is you. This is your journey. This is your trip. And we'll stop taking estrogen.
I'm perfectly happy the way I am. Not everyone that does this journey is going to end up with a sex change. I don't want a sex change. That doesn't mean like I'm not trans. Trans means a lot of things. The first time I got involved with drag was on my 17th birthday. My mom took me and my best friend to Perry's drag brunch in Adams Morgan, DC. And like the main queen is bringing up people. We got to talking and she brought me backstage and she had me perform a number that day. And ever since then I went back once a month since, and I just love it. It's a lot of fun and it's a nice, safe place.
In the early days, I desperately wanted Will to pick a girl name, dress as a girl, get in the box, and let me go stealth so I don't have to explain this to everybody. But that's not Will's path, and I have to respect that, and I think it takes a lot of courage to be true to who you are. I think what we need to do with our kids is let them be who they are and walk with them on this journey. If it is a phase, it will end. If it is not a phase, it will not. And we don't make that call. The child will make that call.
Thank you for watching In the Life. To learn more about our coverage on gender non-conforming youth, visit our website at itlmedia.org.
Gotta come out, Jackie.
Somebody behind you.
Oh no, someone's behind me.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Emmeringen Foundation, Arcus Foundation, the estate of Richard W. Weiland, Dewey and LaBeouf, the estate of James B. Wozniak, and these funders. And by the annual support of In the Life members like you.